Crypto Cats. My name is Tom, I'm the crypto investor, and it's time for our weekly market roundup. As ever, we start with that heat map of the top 100 tokens in crypto. You can see that overall we are red once more. It's that pale of red. We're looking at 4s and 5% down on the week, nothing too aggressive, but we are 40 days now into this downward slope, and it's getting tedious, isn't it? Rays of light are Avalanche up 32%, and I'll show you why I believe that is happening and why I've made it my 5th largest holding now. Treading water quite nicely, Solana, Luna, Matic, all neutral on the week, as is Doge. And that would actually be on the back of Tesla saying that they will be accepting Doge for merch. Looking at the bubbles, you can see there's Avalanche once more. Hex is, from what I understand, Hex isn't really a legitimate token and you can't really trust these metrics. Good to see CVX and Curve up on the week. Some DeFi rays of hope, particularly YEARN Finance, up 60% for the week. YEARN's been so quiet for so long, and I'll tell you why that is pumping in a minute and why I've also added to it yesterday. And I have also added to a little bit of Aave because there is some exciting news about Aave 3.0 upcoming as well. All right, by the way, if you do appreciate the content, please hit the like button. I am recording this early in the morning because I'm flying out to the UK tonight, so you can feel sorry for me. I'll be losing this delightful vista and trading it for dreary Britain for the time being. All right, so the big news this week was the Fed. If you watch my video, I think I released it on Tuesday, I explained in more detail what was happening and what really is, what has been driving this kind of market downturn. We saw a massive relief rally on the back of the news that basically the clarity that the Fed is dialing back its bond purchasing, the Moneyprinter, and that they are pricing in 3 interest rate hikes throughout 2022 and scheduling further ones in 2023, 2024. The market did rally just because it got that clarity, but it has since given back a lot of those gains on the NASDAQ and S&P as they digested this information and realized we're moving much more to a higher interest rate environment. But you've got to remember that the Fed is between a rock and a hard place. They can't raise interest rates that much. If they raise them above, there's so much debt in the system that if they raise them above 3% or 4% or so, I think the whole market would effectively implode. The national debt of the US is so great, and there's so many zombie companies like General Electric that would just capitulate and go bankrupt if interest rates were higher than 3 or 4% or so. So even though there are these rates coming, the hikes coming, they're going to have to be playing a very careful game of chicken. So but it's certainly, that rhetoric is what is kind of changing the market right now, and I'll talk about that with Bitcoin versus the L1s of ETH and Luna and AVAX and Solana and such in a minute. All right, so I'm also tired because I was up last night using my Mutant Ape to get me one of these Adidas NFTs. And they had a bit of a screw up, they say, snags along the way where Mutant Apes didn't work, so I didn't get one. Pretty pissed off. And I also hardly slept. But anyway, what this is all about is that I think Adidas paid 40 ETH or so for a Bored Ape, so 180 grand. And yesterday they just made $22 million selling 30,000 NFTs. And not only did they get that, they got 30,000 people who are now emotionally invested in their product. They are owners of effectively something that entitles them to exclusive Adidas products. And so, as I said many times, crypto pays you to propagate it. Adidas are adopting crypto and they're getting paid for doing so. So they will now also be able to put on their Q1 balance sheet digital asset sales up 10,000% because or infinite percent, because they've gone from 0 to 22 million. And this is just the beginning. And you can bet your bottom dollar that many other companies are watching and running around trying desperately to consider how they can do the same. So this is adoption in real time. 2021 has been an exciting year of adoption. So Avalanche, I said, is doing very nicely. And for me, this is one of the most important pieces of alpha to look for with an L1, and that's development. You remember me sharing downloads of development packs for different L1s, and Cardano having a big fat zero because you can't develop on something without smart contracts. But Avalanche has got this huge uptick in development activity on its blockchain. And that is massive. That's where network effects come from. If developers are choosing to use Avalanche to write on, then they will see a proliferation of more dApps built on it and a stronger blockchain on the back of that. The network effect builds and grows. So for me, developer downloads, developer use is huge, very important. That gave me the comfort to really build a strong Avalanche position this week and make it my 5th holding. So not financial advice, I'm just a guy on the internet, but for me these are good metrics. All right, and I mentioned YEARN Finance was pumping. So this is because they are launching a massive buyback effectively. So I believe they've just bought back 1% of the holdings of YEARN Finance. Check out this thread from Adam Cochrane, and you can read about what they're up to there. But generally speaking, the tokenomics could really start to play into the favor of YEARN Finance holders, and so it is moving rather nicely on the back of that, up 50% in the last 24 hours. Lemonade, the new insurance company aimed at the millennials, they have just bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin. A small position, but they're a fairly small company. But I don't imagine many people heard about this. For me, it's another company adopting Bitcoin. It's quite big news, but we haven't really heard much about this. But that's pretty bullish. This is interesting. You've got Danielle, he's the godfather of DeFi 2.0, creator of Ohm, and he put this interesting proposal together for Sushi, because Sushi is obviously in somewhat turmoil after losing many of its team, and so this is well worth reading. Check it out, and you can go in and see what he is suggesting for Sushi. It pumped a bit on the back of this, but not so much. It'd be interesting to see how much of this end up being adopted and used, but it's a pretty comprehensive and decent proposal to look at and get your teeth into. So in case you didn't know, for those of you who perhaps you have parents who want to get exposure to crypto but they've got all their money in mutual funds and such, you can buy Ether Capital Corporation, ticker ETHC, to get pretty direct exposure to ETH. And they have just put over 10,000 of their ETH into staking, and so that's nice to see. All of this just helps the price of ETH. That's $40 million locked up. I mentioned about NFTs and how this proliferates adoption. Well, pretty huge news this week is that Shopify have allowed storefronts effectively to mint and sell NFTs. So anyone who runs their business on Shopify, not only can they say, when you buy this t-shirt or pair of trainers from me, put in your ETH address to receive an NFT, and then you'll get that with your t-shirt, and then that will allow you to get exclusive access to new ranges, yada yada yada. But they're basically making it so you can launch new NFTs using the Shopify plug and play website, because they recognize that they can get a nice percentage commission of all NFT sales. So Shopify very quick to move on this. Great to see. Big player. Decent stock as well if you don't have it in your TradFi portfolio. You're 100% crypto. Well, me too, DJ, me too. Not quite. Nike also, of course, wasn't going to just let Adidas have all the fun. They are doing a Nike metaverse. I actually don't know exactly specifically what they're up to. They've acquired RTFKT, and they are building basically a Nike metaverse. They're making big moves into this space. Forgive the shallow analysis on that one. Immutable X, good token. If you don't already hold it, I strongly recommend having a look at IMX. So they have, you may have noticed that Gary Vee has a number of the Disney NFTs, which he is helping to sell effectively, and they are now using IMX as their sales layer to have gas-free sales of gas-free trading of NFTs on there. So this is really good adoption for IMX, and yeah, very strong token. I haven't actually seen what the price action was on the back of this, but it's a really, really solid project, and could easily become like one of the de facto standards for where NFTs are bought and sold as a kind of settlement layer. Bank of Russia wants to ban mutual funds from investing in Bitcoin, or they intend to ban. Wikipedia has sold their first edit as an NFT for $750,000. Nice way of funding Wikipedia, pretty cool. Again, crypto pays you to propagate it. Reddit are going public as a company. I mention this just because Reddit are so well positioned to become a web-free company. They are tokenizing karma. If you don't use Reddit, when you contribute to the forums, you get upvotes or downvotes, and that is effectively going to be a small crypto token, and they are going public and coming in at quite a low valuation. I believe it's something like $15 billion. If they do float at 15 billion, I will be a buyer of Reddit stock. I like their slow, steady approach to growth, and they're well positioned to be a Web3 leader. But yeah, so this is good for broader adoption. I mean, the fact that I can't remember the statistics, but there's a lot of Reddit users, and each one of them would effectively have a crypto address once it has that rollout. So it's huge adoption. It would something like double the amount of ETH addresses or more. I mentioned Aave are testing version 3. So really, Aave is, apart from on Polygon, is fairly unusable at the moment on L1. And so it should see success with its rollout on L2s, hence why it's up 10% this week. And I think it probably should start to bounce off. DeFi is very cheap right now, perhaps oversold. This is quite a cool site, moneyprinter.info, and you can see basically the percentage issuance rates, how much money is being paid out by that blockchain to its users. So ETH pays out 4.2% to the miners and validators. Bitcoin pays out 1.7%, of course, to the miners, and you can get an idea of kind of what is paid out to these different users of these cryptocurrencies. And Elizabeth Warren, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's well worth watching the clip of Elizabeth Warren's lack of understanding of DeFi in Congress. She calls, basically, it says that DeFi is funding terrorists and we're all scammers, cheats and swindlers. I think she needs to learn a little bit more about DeFi because, of course, the banking system in the US is whiter than white itself. And anyway, it's just some FUD coming out of Warren. And this is cool if you haven't seen Superfluid. So this is one of the amazing things that blockchain will achieve, that effectively transactions will become microtransactions, tiny transactions in your bank account. Instead of seeing your rent going out in one big chunk and getting these large moves down or up in your balance, you will start to see that fluidity, that your balance just slowly ticks up or slowly ticks down as all your transactions are made every second effectively. So you book a holiday with my company Desert Island Survival and you go on a Desert Island Survival adventure. Never really plugged this before. Should we plug it? And you pay for your payments in just tiny little microtransactions. So when I'm not doing crypto, by the way, I do take people to desert islands. This is my company, desertislandsurvival.com. Check it out. We've got 3 places left in the Philippines in March. I'm running those expeditions myself. We teach you survival skills, how to make fire, build shelters, catch fish, and basically get back to simplistic living on a tropical desert island. So yeah. Anyway, thought I'd have that a little plug. Why not? So let's get into the charts, shall we? So that's Bitcoin dominance. Let's have a look at Bitcoin as it is. Bitcoin is sitting at $46,000. We are still, this is the daily chart. Each one of these is a daily candle. Since we put in that new peak on the 10th of November, we are down over 40 days, 34% or so. Very little leverage is left in the system, so we shouldn't get any big flush outs like we saw here, but we have to cross this line for the bulls to take back over and for us to shift into an upward momentum. So if your money's on the sidelines, your safest place is just to wait until we have a daily close over this line. Or you can try and catch the bottom, but that's obviously a risky approach. The safest way is to wait until we cross this line. Hence why I have an alert set on it. You can right click and choose alert on these. In fact, it's up here. So we're coming into, I've got this circle on here. This is where I would anticipate that we will bounce. And it's where we have an upward trend line, but that would still put us down a further 7%. And it's coming in basically where we found support on that previous flush out at 43,000. So maybe we have to touch down there before we eventually build a floor and move up. But what I wanted to talk about quickly was the fact that, you know, Bitcoin is your hedge against inflation. It's your store of wealth. And as interest rates are now looking to, well, will be raising, it becomes less interesting for people to necessarily be holding Bitcoin. Long term, obviously it makes sense, but in the short term, it puts a bit of pressure. Interest rates put pressure on Bitcoin. They also put pressure on growth stocks. And I think you can think of L1s like Ethereum and Avalanche and Solana and such as hyper growth stocks. They're speculative growth stocks. And so it's no surprise that we're seeing pressure on their price right now as the market kind of digests that information. So yeah, for me, we've got to just break this downward channel until we see that close above there. We are in this downward move. But you know, the night is darkest before the dawn. We will soon cross it and begin our march back up. For me, this is not the end of the cycle in any way. Talking of the end of the cycle, one of the things which people look for is that blow off top. You know, we're waiting for that big parabolic FOMO move. I was on a podcast recording this week, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that I feel like that is less and less likely. Sure, we can see it in lower market cap cryptocurrencies like Shiba, where it's very easy for the herd to move the needle. But you have to remember with Bitcoin, it's a trillion, well, it was, it's $1 trillion market cap asset. And so for retail to create a blow off top, we need so much money. Whereas actually you'll find that more and more now it's institutional money, it's hedge funds and VC firms which are making these investments, or corporations like Lemonade and of course MicroStrategies making these limit order payments. So they don't FOMO in with their big one-off market orders, they have those limit orders set to purchase. So I just feel like less and less a big parabolic blow off top is more probable, because I just don't feel that retail has the firepower to make that happen at these $1 trillion levels. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Looking at ETH, we are coming into this support channel right now. We came down last night to 3,650 and bounced, and we're kind of testing it again. Really, we're getting to a shit or get off the pot point, as I like to say in my finest technical analysis, where just like with Bitcoin, ETH needs to cross this to move back up, but it also has this support of this upward channel. So I would say that we are in line for a move pretty quickly. I would hope that we get something like this, and hopefully that this is not actually going to lead us to be pushed down and break this channel. But it's to be honest, quite hard to call right now. The sentiment isn't great. I would still say that my bias is to the upside because, hey, I'm an optimist and it pays to be an optimist, and I'm a gigabull. But yeah, we will see a decisive move one way or the other probably in the next 48 hours or so. So hopefully we're going to see a nice break to the upside here. Looking at the ETH Bitcoin ratio, we are currently sitting at 52%, so just as high as we were last week. If we take that onto the weekly chart, you can see that we have a fairly nice hammer where ETH has found buyers versus Bitcoin and come back up. Generally speaking, I looked at this earlier in the week on the 12-month, and I think it's like quite interesting just to check out Bitcoin. I'll take the drawings off as well. This is Bitcoin versus Ethereum on the 12-month, and you can see that, okay, we had those crazy blow-off tops in 2017 where ETH was a paradigm shift compared to Bitcoin, but nothing was built on it, and we didn't have EIP 1559, and we didn't know what NFTs were, and we didn't know what DeFi was, and now we have this, and we're looking obviously 12 days away from the end of the year, and we're going to have the highest 12-month candle close for Ethereum. I personally see this just being the first of of many more candles like this over the coming years. And as I've said before, okay, you can see how far away we are from the flippening, but I think 2023 or so we'd likely see that flippening and then really move on further. So, oh yeah, and I just want to show you one last thing on Bitcoin. Let's take that back to the weekly chart. In fact, let's go daily. Stay with me, crypto cats. Okay, and so yeah, one of the things we can do is look at the previous sell-off from top to bottom here. So we can see that April to July sell-off, and then we can effectively copy it onto here. And if something like that happens, then maybe we do have quite a lot of pain still to go before obviously that would be the bottom around 36, 37, and then we've moved back up. So just to be the bearer of bad news, it is not improbable that we do see something like that and we drift out for a few more months. Just to make it a little prettier for you, we can start from here to here. And we can say that we are here right now, and that maybe we have this kind of drift off down a few tests of the 40,000 before the triple test, 1, 2, 3, back up, and we work our way up. In fact, look how nicely that would fit into our channel with a new high in May of 78,000 or so. I mean, I think for me that something like this is extremely probable. You have to be patient, you have to play the long game when investing. If you try to get rich too quickly and you try to use leverage and try and second guess the market, you genuinely will lose. Looking at DeFi, we can see that, I mean, despite what I was just saying about YEARN Finance and Aave and Sushi all having good weeks, we are still obviously down on the week. We have a fairly nice, hammer forming there. And maybe, I think DeFi is looking pretty cheap and appealing, to be honest. It's certainly something worth dollar cost averaging into. The most depressing chart in crypto has actually managed to put in 2 weeks of green versus Ethereum. We've seen that before, so I'm not getting out of bed for it. But is this the bottom for DeFi versus ETH? It's certainly very cheap. So yeah, we'll look for a third week, and maybe we're starting to see the beginning of a floor and a bottom being put in. It's way too early to say. There's not much to hang your hat on there. Taking a look at Solana, so we're neutral on the week, but we are just like the others in this kind of downward channel. We need to see a break of this channel. Let's stick an alert on there. And looking at Bitcoin dominance, I think is very interesting. We are still in this kind of wedge pattern. We have a third tap. Normally, I'm not a technical analyst, but normally you get 1, 2, 3 taps, and either you get the break on the third or the resumption up. The third tends to be a fairly pivotal moment. So again, I really feel like the market's at that kind of pivotal moment right now. Overall, I expect Bitcoin dominance to drop further. I expect L1s. For me, L1s and everything we see built on crypto is what the value proposition is for me. I mean, Bitcoin is a terrific store of wealth, but where I see the real growth coming from is L1s. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see this break in the coming weeks or so, particularly if we start to see ETH and AVAX and Luna and such being bid. Looking at ETH dominance, we're up at 21%, still looking strong, still moving its way up. Solana dominance also holding up pretty nicely. Luna dominance holding up pretty nicely. Cardano dominance continuing to look dreadful. First time below 2% since back in May. Probably we'll see a bit of resistance there for Cardano. Avalanche looking strong. Matic continuing to hold this channel nicely up on the week despite having another very volatile week and selling off, finding support again on this trend line here. So much exciting news for Matic in the post, and they're just buying all sorts of alternative scaling solutions. You know, if they own the monopoly of all of them, and we'll find out which one is the winner. If it's, you know, ZK rollups or zero knowledge or whatever it might be, Matic look well set to dominate the L2 space. Okay, I think that's it for now, Crypto Cats. Quite a long one. I hope you found it useful. As ever, this is not financial advice. I'm just a guy on the internet. Please do hit the like button. Please do comment. Please do share it with your mates. I hope you found it valuable, and I will speak to you ever so soon. All the best.